Welcome to EngageU, the podcast for the Tucson Association of Realtors. I am Lisa Nutt, your host. Today I'm joined by Sean Cody, our Director of Government Affairs, and although typically Mr. Ted Maxwell is CEO of the Southern Arizona Leadership Council, today he's joining us as the board chair for the Regional Transportation Authority, and that's what we'll be chatting about today. Thanks for joining us, Ted.
You're more than welcome. It's kind of nice because this will be one of my last roles as the board chair, because at the January meeting, Mayor Joe Winfield from Ore Valley will take over the chairmanship of the RTA board.
Great, so a good way to end your tenure then.
This is a great way to finish. This is a great, as of now it is.
Right, we'll see how it goes.
I'll tell you Absolutely.
Well, and so in 2006, right, voters of Pima County authorized the Regional Transportation Authority for the first time. $0.50, right? Sales tax. What have been some of the most significant successes or benefits of the plan?
Well, there's been a lot of successes, and the thing people need to remember is 2006 was the first time that this region passed a regional transportation plan. Something that was focused not just on one of the municipalities, not just on one of those, but something that would cross across the county. And most importantly, it brought us significant funding for our infrastructure program. The RTA half-cent sales tax is 2 times as large as the money that we get from the state and the federal government for regional transportation.
Right.
And that's a significant amount of money. And despite, there was some problems created by 2008 and the economic downturn, there's been a lot of great investment. And there's something for everybody. There's almost 1,000 projects that have been completed, over $1.6 billion put into the region.
Right.
Now, if you want the big successes, look no further than some of our arterial roads. Speedway, Broadway, Grant. There's been investment on the north side, the east side, all over on the roadways.
Right.
One thing people forget is sometimes we complain a lot about the roadways and the conditions that they're in, but guess what? When we redo them and expand them and modernize them, we get the benefit of better traffic flow, but we also put a new road on the pavement and it's down. So it serves a dual purpose in that front. But probably the most projects that people see and understand are the big TIs, the big traffic interchanges on I-10. You've got INA, you've got the Twin Peaks, and those have changed the ability for everybody. Folks from the city of Tucson are going to use those interchanges when they're getting on the freeway going either north or south. People coming into Tucson use those type of interchanges, and they've had a big impact. And you can't minimize the impact it's had on transit. People do not understand how much money, almost $30 million annually, goes into transit operations, and that wasn't even the expansion. There were expansion dollars for more routes, more routes. Now, you want to ask me what the most visible project is? It's the streetcar. And there's some folks love it. Like I said, it's a little bit of everything in the RTA authority. Some people think it was a good investment, then some think it was horrible. But the one thing you can't deny is the growth along that route.
Sure. And
you've seen that probably in your profession, that the amount of buildup along the routes, people want to be near the route. Sometimes it's hard because is there good housing opportunities there for people? That's something I think you'll continue to see grow. But when it comes to the economic development and the turnaround of downtown, what if they happened without the streetcar? We'll never know.
Right.
But the one thing I can tell you is because the streetcar is there, it serves the community, particularly downtown. It serves the visitors that come into town. It serves the University of Arizona and the students. So that to me is one of the visible ones.
Sure.
It's also one of the most expensive. So
right.
It's all about give and take.
And generally speaking, so it's a 20-year plan.
It's a 20-year plan. We're on year 18. It expires.
Right.
We're actually almost in year 19. It expires in June of 26. It was forecast to bring in about $2.1 billion over the 20 years, and that was using the baseline, which if you're an economist, 50% of the time the revenues are coming below, 50% of the time they're going to, at 50%
so just
they're
the
going to come
math
above.
of it, right?
It's just the middle.
Right.
2.1 billion. We're going to end up getting somewhere between 1.8 and 1.9 billion dollars. So we're a couple
nearly.
We're a couple 100 billion short.
But big improvement from expectations of just a couple of years ago.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely. It was the turn down in 2008 that put us so far behind. We're actually now bringing in revenues either at the forecasted revenues or above. You know, and when you look at it, $2.1 billion average over 20 years, you know, that's over $100 million to the region every year. And we're actually now collecting about 130 to 140 million annually.
And the other part that, because you touched on it, but I want to make sure that people understand, is that this funding allows for us to have flexibility in addition to having additional funding, right? Because it complements state and federal dollars.
There are a lot of funds, and if you look at the RTA Next, there's almost $700 million coming in addition to the estimated, using the pessimistic form of 2.45 billion. The conservative. To use the economist numbers, 80% of the time the revenue will exceed the 2.45 billion we're using right now. Whereas last time it was a 50-50 proposition. So this is a more conservative plan for the RTA Next. But to your point, it leverages federal dollars, it leverages state dollars. A lot of the funding that we get, it also gives you priority getting into the state 5-year plan.
Right.
You can go up in the town of Maricopa, shows up every single state transportation board beating on us because they want 347. Well, we don't have any money. They don't have any money. It doesn't give you priority. If you have a regional plan in place, like Maricopa, just reauthorize their half cent.
Right.
We can authorize our half cent, then it gives us priority because we've got the funds. We don't have to find the funds, we don't have to find the dollars, but the state will provide matching dollars for the programs.
Correct.
You know, you'll see 2 projects in RTA Next that deal with SR 210, the aviation highway. $25 million coming from us. Hundreds of $1 millions coming from the state because that's a state route. So it doesn't just impact state routes, city towns, interstates. It covers all the different roadways in the area.
That's true from a federal perspective too, right? As far as having the regional transportation authority, the priority of federal dollars.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It works both ways. There's different challenges. I think you may have seen the Irvington TI is one that just was in the press. It's been slipped for its start date by about 6 months, the anticipated start date. One, business reasons. We're now not going to have the construction down there around a big, large business complex, mall, successful one that's doing a lot of good business. It won't cover 2 holiday seasons now. Now we'll only cover 1. But it is an example of federal dollars, which come with higher regulations, and getting the environmental impact done. A couple other things down there is one of the reasons, and community input's the other, to slip it 6 months. But to your point, Sean, it absolutely helps us get and leverage federal dollars.
Move on. Infrastructure, and particularly infrastructure funding, isn't always the most enlightening conversation.
It's not a sexy topic. Is that what you're talking about?
Sexy, but
to some of us, yes. However,
some policy wonks. There are tangible benefits of RTA One and RTA Next. So talk to us a little bit about the improvement in mobility connectivity that voters will actually see in RTA Next.
Well, I'm going to use an example that I used at the last RTA board when I was talking with Mayor Winfield before the meeting and during the meeting about I live in Oro Valley, so to me the regional connectivity is an important piece. And there's a new segment in RTA Next called arterial rehabilitation, and that's why I brought up the idea of fixing the roads by constructing the roads. And some of our roadways, some of our arterial roadways, because we don't do feeder routes or the neighborhoods, that's different responsibility. That falls on the municipalities. But we want to take care of the arterial roads, the roads like Speedway, like Grant, like First, like Oracle, the ones that really move traffic through our region.
The heaviest volume. Yeah.
A lot of those roads are not in good condition right now. And we can say, did that fall on the municipalities? Yeah, they're partly to blame, but there's a lot of things that goes into that. But with this arterial reconstruction category, which right now, the majority of the funding is not in the pessimistic or the conservative view, it's in the baseline view. There's an opportunity to put almost $200 million into fixing our arterial roads. The biggest advantage of those is it's curb to curb. So no design necessary, there's no unnecessary improvement. It's going down 4 to 6 inches, redoing the road, and now you've got a road that's gonna be in good shape for another 20 years. So when I'm in Oro Valley, and I come in to Tucson to work, to play, to spend money, I want roads I can drive on. I want roads that are in good shape. So to me, that's a benefit to residents of Oro Valley, Marana, and the rest of the communities, that we are taking care of the arterial roads that we all drive on when we come into this area. So that's one example. But the other example that, Mayor Honey, and his loss is gonna be a big impact on the RTA, because while many people would see us go head to head on certain issues, ultimately I know that Mayor Honey believed in the RTA. All of the, quick sidebar, all of the mayors of the current municipalities will tell you that RTA One has been a huge benefit to their communities, because it brings in 2 times as much money as we've got otherwise, unless they want to go out and tax their own citizens and their own citizens alone. And then we lose the regional approach. And roads are a system. Infrastructure is a system. So we have to have it throughout. But he'll remind me all the time that the INA-TI was probably more beneficial for those folks that live in Tucson and live in the east side of the valley, because it's their easy access. It's their improved access onto the freeway.
Onto I-10.
And onto I-10. So it does have, benefits throughout. But you also can't look at benefits for those who rely on transit.
Public transportation.
Public transportation of any sort, whether it's streetcar, whether it's dial-a-ride, whether it's, Suntran. 610 million in RTA Next would go to support that over the 20 years of the program. The majority of it's just funding the operations that are currently in existence. So if this doesn't pass, the frequency, the availability, the ridership, everybody's gonna be impacted. I always like to tell people a story about Michael Ortega when he first came in as the city manager. It's back when we were having a Suntran strike. And so we talk about the ridership, how the ridership might get hurt, right? It's not easy. He said the #1 complaints he was getting was from the business community, because the people that work at their businesses were impacted on getting to it.
Depended
It
on
depended
it to
on getting to it. And infrastructure and transportation, not infrastructure, transportation is a system of infrastructure, and that includes roads, that includes transit, that includes anything that helps us move people effectively. And the worst thing we can have, and at this time of year always reminds us all, how many lights do you sit at some of these major intersections? And some people go, oh, it's the timing of the lights. No, it's not, because you're gonna build up a longer line the longer you let each side go. It's a system. And we sometimes lose that, and it's so important for that transportation system in this region to be regional. And if the municipalities, and Mayor Romero and Mayor Honey, before his passing, said, if this fails, we'll go it alone. And sometimes they'll say, we might be better off alone. And I won't argue that. The individual municipalities,
not to shy away from.
exactly. And the individual municipalities could do more of what they want if they do it on their own. But anybody that understands that it's a regional transportation system you need.
Right.
And when it comes to economic development, and we may get into some of that later,
In fact, I want to get into that now.
It's critical.
Right.
When companies come and look here, and they see a roadway system or a transportation system that's not working.
Or even how logistics is one of our main drivers for our
Absolutely.
local economy. We cannot have or recruit or retain logistics companies without having a strong infrastructure not only in place, but a commitment to continue to invest and expand.
And Lisa, that's a great point.
Right?
They need to know that we as a region
Correct, yeah, as a community.
are serious about supporting their needs. And that means it has to be efficient, it has to be effective, they have to see the investment. When they come around, they see traffic issues, or they see roads in disrepair, or they see that doesn't make them want to move not only
Well, it's a hard
their company, it is, and not only, there's no hard sells. Not only the company to be here, but they're moving their workers and their families and their peoples here. They don't want to put them into a system that they're just going to have frustration. And I'm going to harp it a lot. It comes down to the money you have for investment.
Mhm.
And without the RTA half percent, some people like to call it a percent because when sales tax is really a percent, but a half cent on each dollar additional that goes into the RTA, we lose 67% of the funding we have for regional roads.
Right, so it's a disproportionate loss,
Correct.
right, which is an important point to make. The other point that I think is important to make is that this would be a renewal, an extension, not anything new.
So that's a great point. Because of the recent court rulings, everybody has to understand it is a new tax because the RTA One, we'll call it RTA One, RTA
we'll
tax
sunset.
was out, and we sunset that, so we close that tax, start the new tax. But to your point, it doesn't change.
From a consumer standpoint.
It doesn't change the amount that was on before the vote and will be on after.
Correct.
Now, June 26th comes, and we don't have it. We're gonna lose that half cent, so it's going down, but get ready.
That and the additional 67%
of the funding, but get ready because municipalities will have no choice, but potentially to either work harder on getting a regional one back in place, or they'll go their own, and then sales tax still hasn't come down. So it's, to me, we can't call it a renewal. It is a new tax, but it's not gonna be an increase on the overall tax rate that you were paying the day before the election.
I appreciate the clarification, thanks.
Gotta stay out of trouble.
Well,
so
as best as we can. I usually
there-
know some of the good trouble.
There are groups out there that they hear you pitching something that's not factually correct. Will
They
come
want to
after
make
you.
sure
So,
to make the distinction. Yeah.
absolutely.
Great.
Was that your question?
Because we eased right into economic development on that one, so the
Are you saying I'm knocking you off target? Well, if you want to talk about economic development, then one of the questions I know you had, and I appreciate you kind of give me some insight on, and this is an important thing to you as realtors, to where are the homes growing?
Right.
Where are the areas that are building? You know, and Vale out east has got a ton of unlimited potential, and right now, a lot of the development is going on there.
Right, that in Northwest.
The question will be how much the business will follow to that way. The Northwest of Miranda, that's going to grow. That's going to continue to grow.
What's from a development standpoint, not only residentially but commercially and industrially along the I-10 corridor in the Miranda area specifically.
And there's so much on that side. We can get into the economic competition we're having. You know, Casa Grande and Pinal are having a lot of successes. They're going to run into infrastructure problems as well. But for right now, they have enough, and its proximity to a lot of the suppliers and a lot of others which are based in the Maricopa area has made it really attractive. We've got to get back to making this area really attractive.
Yes.
It's really important for everyone, all your members and everybody, get involved in this survey. Right now, RTA Next has got a survey going on. You may have seen it screen over behind us. RTAnext.com is where you can go to do it.
That's right.
Attend the meeting that you've got on the 7th
Yes.
here. There'll be informational, but you can find all the information you really need, including the maps and the overlays, and you see where the growth is going, you see where you see where the expansion is going, what roads are on the current plan. And I keep talking about current plan. This is out to the public view. The board has not approved this to go to the ballot yet. This is trying to get public input from not only the citizens, but also the businesses and the retirees who use the systems. We want input from everybody because honestly, the mayors are doing a good job at trying to support their cities and their citizens. So we need to get a feeling for what everybody wants, but please go on and complete that survey.
Right.
One of the things that we're getting a lot of feedback from right now are the folks out in the Vale area. Now, remember, Vale failed to incorporate.
Again.
Unlike Maricopa and a lot of counties that are significant counties throughout
The state.
United States, not just our state, but the United States. Maricopa is 97% incorporated.
Right.
Here in Pima County, we are only about 64% incorporated. We lose shared state revenue, but there's also means there's one representative on the RTA board that represents all that 36% that's in unincorporated Pima County, as well as representing still the citizens of Pima County that are incorporated. So that voice doesn't always get heard, and one of the things that I felt was really strong for Vail was if they had done that, they would have gotten a seat at the RTA board, they would have gotten a seat on PAG, there would have been input. There's not a lot of projects out in the Far East. They're letting us know that. They're also letting us know how it's going to impact economic development, how it's going to impact continued growth. And I think they've got a legitimate complaint, but as I've told them, then give us specific projects.
Right.
The things about the municipalities, they can bring us specific projects. Things
And
they want to
prioritize
do.
them.
And prioritize them.
Right, because that's the other aspect.
But who's setting the priority out in Vail?
Sure, right.
Or
Yeah.
out in,
Yeah, because outside of
Corona
the
de
hub
Tucson or out in-
interchange, right, yeah, and even though multimodal is out there, foreign trade zones are out there, from an economic development
Oh, yeah.
standpoint, from a commercial.
A lot of
those are
potential.
Lots of potential,
Lots of potential.
right, untapped.
Yeah, but without the RTA, if all the municipalities, we already talked about not only the number of people that are incorporated, but if you look at the unincorporated land in Pima County, it's over 50%. I mean, most of the land is not incorporated. So if all the municipalities retreat into their own individual footprints, most of the land's not having any improvement. And that's why a regional approach for a transportation system is so important.
Well, and that's the business we're in, right, is to bring highest and best economic use
Absolutely.
of not only the land, but also the infrastructure and the buildings on it.
Through economic vibrancy and economic development, we can address all the all the issues we have in this community: crime, poverty, employment, education, because it brings more funding to that. I mean, you know as well as anybody, that kind of growth builds a community and improves a community.
And affordability.
Yes.
Right, because again, the types of companies that would come and stay generally are in industries that have higher paying jobs. And that is a crucial element to the affordability question, besides the supply side,
Right.
which we also work on, right? So-
Absolutely. Yeah. But the transportation infrastructure system is something we all use, we all need. It looks different for different people. People have different things, but if you go through the RTA Next project list, and that's not just the road projects, there's 31 of them right now, but if you don't go even just beyond the road projects, there's $45 million in there for pedestrian improvements. There's in the city of Tucson. There's another $45 million for bicycle improvements and opportunities. And it's not just located in the city of Tucson. That exists also in Greater Pima County. There's some funds for that. So folks who are looking for reasons to say yes can find them if they look.
Great.
If they insist on saying, well, we need to be more, that's not doing it. We're gonna have
This
people,
at least keeps us in the game.
we're gonna have cars on the road.
Right,
We're gonna have people that want to ride transit. We're gonna have people that want to walk, and you live in a 15-minute community.
right.
The fact of the matter is we're a large county, really large county. Even the city of Tucson's 246 square miles.
Right.
You're gonna have all sorts of transportation needs.
Right, we're in the top 35 metro areas in the country. So
Oh yeah.
we need to.
So we need a
reflect that.
transportation system that can support that.
Correct.
You mentioned the survey. January 7th, TAR is hosting a open house information session with the RTA here at 6 p.m. But talk to us a little bit more about how the feedback that's being received or will be received will be incorporated into the plan.
So the process that led up to this, we had the Citizens Advisory Committee, which worked for 5+ years on trying to get a plan together. They came forward with a couple plans. Those have been modified. So we've been modifying it. But this is the opportunity for us to go back and go, okay, what did the community tell us what they want? And then it's up to the members of the RTA. It's the members of the Transportation Board, which I'm serving as a representative of ADOT and the only non-elected. The rest of them are all the municipalities or the tribal chamber. And there's going to be a lot of opportunity. It's going to be interesting going forward. South Tucson has a new mayor. John Post is the new mayor in Marana, placing Ed Honey. He's got big shoes to fill, to say the least. And so the makeup of the board's changing a little bit, and so it's going to be real important to have a clear message from the community of what they want. And then it's gonna be up to some of us who are focused on getting this to the voters. We'd like to get it to the voters November of 25. We have to get it to the voters and passed no later than May of 26. We'd like to take 2 opportunities, but you know, Maricopa ran into a whole bunch of problems getting theirs to the ballot. Now they have to do it a little differently than we did. And they got it through with about 62% of the vote with 1 shot. It was literally, if they missed, they were gonna be in trouble. And it would have crippled the transit system in Phoenix, because they've got a much larger percentage that goes to that than we do. But I'll tell you, ours, if it doesn't pass, I don't know if I'd use the word cripple, but it will severely impact the transit, and it will ensure that the road improvements and the roads we deserve to have won't occur. They're just not gonna occur.
$2.5 billion is a lot of money. You mentioned some of the internal committees at RTA, but accountability, transparency, the projects that are approved, not being moved around, dollars shifted. Talk about that process.
That's a great point, because it's something that we are currently in the process of developing right now, and that is the administrative code. So what you see right now, there's the list of all the projects and all the money in the draft projects and the funds, and which municipality or the county, who will be responsible for getting that done and where it's happening.
And also the mix of funds.
Right,
what each source
is. There's 5 different categories, to include transit, to include wildlife. There's money in there for wildlife projects to ensure that the new roads or the expansion of roads don't result in more threats to some of the wildlife that, as we all know, goes throughout this entire county.
And is such an important part of our community.
Right, and the multimodal and safety enhancements, signaling, and there's so much that's covered.
Very comprehensive.
That's very covered in this. But to your point, Sean, most of that will list in the administrative code, which everybody will have access to. It won't be on the ballot. You'll see this on the ballot, whatever the final list of we have to buy project to name what it is. We have to buy on the ballot, have to show where the money, different categories that the money's gonna go to. But the administrative code's where it's gonna make it happen. I talked about we're using the conservative estimate, but we've also already outlined the plan for what if we hit that 50% mark. So that above the $2.45 billion, there's another $320 million that we've already allocated of what it's gonna go to. And the city of Tucson took a lot of that risk. So they're getting about half the money up front, collect about 65% of the money, but they're getting about half up front. But they'll increase the amount that they get if we hit that 50% number instead of 0. But what if we exceed 50%? Then there's even more that can happen. But most important lesson we learned is we have to be efficient and effective, which wasn't always the case in RTA One, of getting the roads completed. Some of it falls on the municipalities. They're responsible for, actually, RTA doesn't build a single road. It's not, we don't manage them. We turn them over to the professionals inside the municipalities. So there's some things in there that I think will help. We had delays on some projects that make projects come in over cost. So we're trying to put in something. One is that if money is allocated to a project and it can't be executed within 6 months, either we move it to another project or RTA can't come in and help manage it and push it and get it done.
So
that's
making
one
them more, or time sensitivity, or even a level of urgency.
In the infrastructure, as with almost everything in life, every delay you've got is probably going to cost you money, not just in time, but also prices are going up. And we saw that that's really what's hurt us the worst since coming out of COVID. The prices, and I can tell you from contract approvals at the state transportation board, they skyrocketed. They've leveled off. They may even be coming back down, but they just took off.
And so then it compounds.
Creates more problems. So getting the projects done on time in their period is going to be important. So we're putting some safeguards in place. The other thing is, this is a 20-year plan. We got some great projects on that list. Are we going to need it in 15 years? We don't know.
Because they are broken down into 5-year increments,
yes,
correct?
so period 1, period 2, period 3, and period 4, 5-year increments, and that's when they're supposed to start getting their funding. Because it's all about, remember, the funding sales tax that comes in over time. We've got some funding available that will let us bond for a couple of the first projects when we haven't collected enough money to really get them started yet, versus having to collect all the money and then make it happen. But we're trying to put in there, how often can we review both the revenues? So if we are coming in above that pessimistic view, we don't want to sit on that money. We want to get it put in place. How are we going to do that? Are we going to have a list of pre-approved projects? So these are the ones prioritized that we're going to go to. Don't know yet. Is it going to be a 5-year review? I think it's important at the 5-year point. Some people say 10, some people say 5. That we take a look and go, here's the projects in the next phase. Are they still what the community wants or what the community needs? Some of the projects, like First Avenue, it was originally going to be 6 lanes. Now it's approved to be 4. One of the things is we were also expected to be 1.3 million citizens at the end of RTA One. We're at 1.1. So our growth hasn't occurred. So all the traffic experts said with improvements of turn lanes and right turn lanes at the intersections, it could accomplish the same goals that originally were set out by the 6-lane plan. But instead of making that a fight to get those things changed, and Broadway going to 6 lanes instead of 8 was a fight. I was on the opposite side that lost out because they were going to have bus rapid transit on that. And that was a big thing that people, but a lot of people, when they were fighting the downsides, didn't realize that's what they were giving up. But if we put a process in place where we can take a periodic review and say, do these projects still make sense?
Correct.
And the roadway ones have to go to the voter. Now, if we change something about the roadways, we have to go back to the voter. So if we decide to cancel a project, move money to something else, or insert one of those projects from Vail, or we insert one in and take this one out, we have to go back to the voter. So it's not something we want to do every year or every 2 years.
Right.
So we'll see. But that will all be developed. It's part of the reason that I felt it was very important to get this thing moving to the citizens, because we spent so much time discussing this. We also spent so much time discussing how we're going to finish their RTA One projects, that we weren't making any progress. By getting this to this community for their input, we've kind of stopped talking about what's in it. We'll start talking about it again probably in March. But for now, we need to do that other stuff. We need to
on the administrative
solidify
side.
the RTA One projects, and we need to do the administrative side of it so that we can put those safeguards, those assurities, those input from the community.
And the lessons learned.
Yes.
Right? Because that's important.
Oh, if you don't debrief the previous plan, you're not going to improve the next. So you've got to talk about it.
And the factors that you couldn't have anticipated 5 years ago, we couldn't have anticipated we would have had a global pandemic.
Correct.
And arguably that affected our population, our anticipated population growth, for example, right? Because remote work is now so much more part of the fabric of every community.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because generally speaking, Arizona and Tucson is still a city that people move to, mostly from other states, right? Leaving other states.
Oh no, we are absolutely an in-migration state.
Right,
We
we're still
get
growing.
more than others. Yes, a lot of them come up from California, but you'd be surprised. Illinois is another one. A lot of people come from the Midwest. Well, you probably know that.
Yes.
In your business, you know that.
Right.
You know where people come. But I think Texas was the one state we were losing people to.
Texas or Florida is
and
generally
Florida.
who we lose to.
And it's just, we're going to continue to grow. And so for the people who say, oh, we don't need any more growth, well, it doesn't. People are coming.
Right.
This is a beautiful place to live. We all live here for a reason. We're not going anywhere. And so there's going to be more people coming. But what I wanted, you spark something in my mind. Things happen in a 20-year period that you can't anticipate. Nobody saw the pandemic and the impact it had. But back in 2008, when the economic recession hit hard, if it wasn't for the RTA, a lot of the companies that continue to work on our infrastructure and road would have gone out of business. Why? Because we had money. We had some bonding capacity. We could keep them in business. And oh, by the way, guess what? They were willing to work for cheap that time because they just wanted to keep their employees.
Sure.
They didn't have the business. There wasn't the investment coming.
Right.
But the RTA, because it was a 20-year plan,
projects were still
were in
on the
line.
books.
We actually kept a large segment of that industry going.
Which is another important industry for us in economic development.
Absolutely.
Can't be ignored.
If you live in, Arizona is such a large state,
Mhm.
and the part a lot of us in this region don't understand, we complain about our roads. You get out on some of the state highways in some of the rural areas, you're going, you know, I feel terrible because we only have enough money in our preservation. 74% of the state funding, this goes back to why regional funding is important.
Right.
74% of the state funds that we have for infrastructure go to preservation of our current highway systems, both federal highways, because that's where a lot of the money comes from, and the state highway systems. And then it goes to the non-state routes that we're responsible for. There's not any money. We're not going to have manna from heaven coming down
Right.
and letting us do anything.
There is no magic wand.
It's got to be this way, and it's got to be big picture, and that's why I'm such an
And
advocate.
long term.
And it's why I'm such an advocate for regional investment.
Mhm.
But the RTA, through the economic downturn, yes, it hurt us on our revenues, but it's helped us keep the industry going. And that industry is incredibly important in the state of Arizona, both locally and, you know, in
Mhm.
our region, but also throughout the state. And, you know, the cost of getting, there's so much work, the cost of getting people to do stuff in the rural or the more difficult places to get to continues to skyrocket because it's labor costs. And labor means employment, means jobs.
Mhm.
So it all plays into it. And I'm really concerned if the RTA doesn't get reauthorized.
So you're expecting to take 2 bites at the apple?
As of right now,
Preferably just one.
yeah.
You're preparing to
We're
take.
Right, preparing to
Well,
take 2.
we'd like to
hoping
take,
just need one.
we'd like to have the opportunity to take 2. Because you never know the first time through. And there's gonna be lessons learned from something that gets defeated. But you've gotta take a look at everything. If we do it in November, that's doing it during a City of Tucson election system. And it's 3, 4, and 5.
Mhm.
No, 3, 5, and 6.
Wards.
3, 5, and 6 wards.
Mhm.
Wards 3, 5, and 6 are gonna be elected.
Mhm.
Their views different than Ward 2 and
One,
Ward 4.
four, yeah.
One. So it's,
Oh, yeah.
so you just never know. There's a lot of politics and, you know, political electioneering in that.
Mhm.
But I do think it'd be best if we had 2 shots at
And so that's what you'll prepare for.
it. That's
In the
our goal
meantime-
right now. The board has voted unanimously to try to be on the ballot in November.
Okay.
That's what we're hoping.
And
So
so,
what are the steps that need to occur between now and November?
We have to get by. We have to get a plan in place. So we have to finalize the plan. So we gotta do the community outreach, and we have to get that plan in place and approved. And then no later than July, we can send it as early as May. No later than July, we have to send it to the Board of Supervisors. Now could they say, no, we're not sending it forward? In theory, probably, but it's also one of those things that's
prerogative
written.
to do that.
It's also one of those things written in their statutes that they really are, on this case, are just the authority that's gonna say, yes, this is a valid request by a authorized authority, and we then will forward it, and the county will put it on the ballot.
Mhm.
So that's what we have to do to get it there. But then you have the huge campaign to go out and tell people why it's good, why it's not. And I'm sure there'll be a no campaign as well. And you've got to have enough time to do that. So that's why May might be better, July, because once the board's voted on it, now it's campaign mode for everybody. And the RTA and PEG and the executive director for McGamey has been very clear. We do not advocate. We'll educate, but we can't advocate. So that's when groups like TAR, like SALC, like SABA, the new combined chamber, those are all going to have to get engaged and push, hopefully, for this and not against it. But what's unofficially has to happen too is we have to solve what's going to happen with RTA One. So we've already moved 4 projects into the RTA Next that were from RTA One, but there's 2 major projects that currently still don't have the funding available, and that's Grant Road 5 and 6, not the one that's currently under construction.
Right.
Anything that's currently under construction is going to be completed.
Yeah.
The board's committed to completing all the projects, and then First Avenue. And that's both those projects we need to try to find and figure out how we as a board are going to ensure funding is available. Depending what municipality you represent, you have different thoughts on where those funds should come from. So it's a process, because some of the municipalities not located inside the city of Tucson don't like the idea that if we don't have a good RTA One completion plan of putting another one forward. I'm kind of the flip side. We have to figure out what to do with those projects anyway. Have to try to figure out how to get them done. It will become more difficult if we don't have RTA Next. Because then everybody's gonna dig in and
It
say,
limits the options even further.
we don't need it, right?
Mhm.
So unofficially, we've got to address those RTA One issues, and all the municipalities are concerned with that. But for getting it on the ballot, we need input from the community.
Mhm.
We need to finalize the plan. We need to get the board to approve it.
So input from the community through the end of January.
Official input. You can show up at, anybody from the community can show up at any PAG or RTA board meeting and speak, call the audience. And I'm sure we'll get a lot of that as we're trying to finalize this plan. But yeah, the survey, it won't be open now until the end of January. They may close it right before our board meeting, which I believe is on January 30th. So it may close about the 29th or 20th, so they can brief us on the results at that point without maybe full analysis. But we'll know what's looking, and we can start talking about get an idea of what we may enter in. But can fill out that survey until sooner than later, great.
Right.
But get the information, take a look at the plan, see what you like, see what you don't, and let us know what the voters in the community want on board. And that includes the businesses. Businesses have
Absolutely.
voices. You know, our organization, I guarantee, we're letting the members of Southern Arizona Leadership Council know that you need to use your voice. Everyone counts. I think I've heard rumors we're up about 1,000 surveys filled out, but think about it for a second.
Yeah, that's not
1,000?
In a
1,000?
metro area of over
In
a
a metro,
million.
yeah. So we're hoping to get a lot bigger number because that will let us know what people really want.
Absolutely. So complete the survey, attend a PAG or an RTA meeting for calls to the audience, attend information sessions or open houses that RTA is hosting throughout the community. TAR is one of the locations, as Sean said, on January 7th, 6 p.m. here, 2445 North Tucson Boulevard. Visit rtanext.com, right?
Reach out to your
Ward
representatives.
members or
Both
board of supervisors.
inside the city of Tucson. It's important for all the ward members to be representing your area because the Mayor Romero's been cleared. She'd like to see a 7-0 vote. I'd like to see a 9-0 vote from the RTA board. That's our goals. Make them unanimous so everybody's behind it. We've said from the beginning, you're not going to love everything,
Right.
but you're going to love something, and you might love something a lot.
And think about what we might lose if we don't.
You nailed it.
Not
Lisa.
just what
No.
what you're getting, but what you might not ever have. Right?
And for some of it, the funding's going to have to come from somewhere. So now it becomes the municipalities having to take it from other places. So cities, vibrant cities and municipalities and counties have a regional approach on many issues, but transportation's one they almost all have.
Right. The interdependence of it can't
Absolutely.
be ignored or minimized.
So it's the backbone of our economy. It's the backbone of our quality of life.
Correct.
Nobody likes to. It's amazing. Roads don't pull really high when people prioritize what they want, but when they're on a bad road, you hear about it.
Right, and you hear about it continuously.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for joining us again, Ted.
Appreciate the time.
Happiest of New Years,
Thank you, Lisa.
right?
Happy
Thank
New
you
Year
for
to you.
serving in this role.
Absolutely.
And again,
Well, we got good partners in TAR.
yes,
We've got a lot to work on, and
we'll do it together.
this is to me, when people ask, this is the big thing for 2025.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Like, there's so much going on as we move into the new year already, but there's nothing more important than the RTA, and
It's a bellwether event for us.
yeah, 11 months down the road might seem like it's a long ways off, but it's going to be
Not
here.
time enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Nothing more important than RTA Next.
So we'll
Get
share links.
I was just say, get educated, get
Yep.
engaged.
Get
Get
engaged.
educated, get
And
engaged.
that's what we're doing our part to do. We'll share links, we'll include information on our newsletters, and of course on our website.